All right, sweet. Well, today we have Rami from MatchDay here with us. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, super excited for this. It's cool to have two founders in the same space here in Austin and getting to do this in real life. So super cool. Well, for the audience who doesn't know you personally, give us a little background.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me. So my background's, my name's Rami. I trained as a family doctor. I dropped out of residency, went through a whole identity crisis dilemma of what do I do with my career, and pivoted into working in health tech. That was several years ago. And ever since then, I've been helping clinicians, whether it's doctors, nurses, allied health professionals, navigate their career transition through a structured kind of fellowship, we call it. So, for me, my story starts like a lot of people. You're 18 years old, you go to college, you pick a career, you go down that path, and you kind of just stumble into your first career. And for healthcare professionals, a lot of us, that's around 18, 19 years old, first year of college. For me, I chose pre-med, got through it, and then there's kind of like the challenge piece. It's like you want to get into medical school, you want to achieve that goal. And for me, for whatever reason, that's what I picked. And when I actually got into medical school and started the training, in the beginning, I enjoyed it, but around midway through, I was like, I don't think this is for me. I think I made a huge mistake. And by that time,
How old are you at this point?
I was probably 25 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time. I'm like, oh, like 2 years, whatever.
Yeah.
But no, it's a long career trajectory.
Totally. Yeah. And so, midway through medical school for me, I was really just kind of felt stuck because already, halfway through med school, I'm like $200,000 in debt now. So I'm like, I'm seeing the doctors around me. They're not happy. I'm seeing that I realize this isn't exactly what I want to be doing with my career. I'm not finding a specialty I really like or resonate with. And I'm starting to realize I kind of like business more than medicine, which is kind of weird. For me, it was weird for me at that time because it was, all my classmates are just obsessed with medicine. I was like, I don't feel like that at all. And so I thought something was wrong with me, or, I felt a lot of guilt and shame about that. But that feeling didn't really go away. It kind of just carried through medical school. And, by that time I reached the end of medical school near graduation, I was like, I really don't want to do this. And I considered not doing residency and just leaving right there and then, which I got cold feet and I, went and did residency.
And that was at 26?
I was about 26 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, 27.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And so you completed all of residency? How far did you get?
No, so I
process?
I completed 2 years of residency and then I dropped out, after my second year going into my third year or starting my third year.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wild. Okay. So there's a lot I'm curious about in that personally. So what was the initial aha for you or not even aha, but the initial reason you wanted to pursue being a doctor? Is it family? Was it how did you decide in the first place when you were 18 or earlier that this is the path you think you want to go down?
To be honest, I think part of it's culturally motivated. I grew up in, an immigrant family. My parents are Lebanese. And for a lot of us, the natural path is, doctor, lawyer, engineer. And I think a lot of people with Middle Eastern backgrounds relate to that. But, that was the symbol of success in our community. Were doctors. They were the ones that did really well, had the nice houses, had a lot of job security. And you got to, think about it. For a lot of immigrants in this country, our families come from instability. So they come from war, they come from famine, from job insecurity. And so they come to America and, this is, the land of opportunity, American dream, where there's potential for job stability. And that's really the number one thing for a lot of immigrant parents is it's not about your happiness. It's not about your passions, right? That's just hogwash. It's about job stability and it's about, having a stable career that can support others and yourself. So that's pushed a lot in our communities. It's, become a doctor that's safe It's prestigious. It'll make your family proud. I was particularly lucky. I don't think my parents directly influenced me that way. It was more so the community around me that influenced me that
And when
way.
you say that, was it even just like passively a lot of friends, a lot of people a few grades older than you that you looked
Yeah,
up to were pursuing those things? So it was like
yeah,
I want to follow this trend rather than it being
yeah.
impressed upon you.
It's just the community. It's just like family, friends, the people around you, the people you know, people
Yeah.
that are successful, like that. That's really kind of like one of the only career paths you really see. And
Yeah.
for me, I always thought about it. If I'm going to do something, I'm just going to do the thing that I can be the best at, or the thing that I could pursue that's at the top of the hierarchy in a sense. And, being a doctor for me, I was like, kind of, that seems the path to
Yeah.
do that. So, um, I think most people that choose to become doctors kind of have a little bit of that mindset is like, you don't do it. You don't just because you could take care of patients by becoming a nurse or a nurse practitioner or a PA. I think you have to be a little kind of not narcissistic, but a little psychotic to become a doctor. Like you have to want to be the best
Yeah.
and you have to want to be at the top of the field to pursue that because it's so much training and so much education. It's like, unless that's not your goal and ambition, there's probably other better paths to go into healthcare.
Yeah. That's so interesting. This is a sidebar question, but I'm curious because it's interesting because when you're 18 years old and you decide you want to be a doctor, it probably for a lot of people just sounds like a cool idea. Like they don't fully comprehend how much work it's going to be, how hard it's going to be.
Yeah.
But I do feel like, especially as you said, you get into the weeds and you're like, holy crap, this is hard.
Yeah.
One data point I've never really heard is like, what is the success rate of people? And it's probably fall off at different tiers, but maybe like once you're done with undergrad, what percentage of people are still pursuing it? And do you even like have a rough idea of how many people like pursue that and then actually make it through and become a doctor?
I think it's pretty competitive even from when I went from undergrad into college. I know like at least half of my friends that were trying didn't make it. Some people go to Caribbean or other routes, which is not the worst path, but it's just harder once you transition back into American residencies.
Yeah.
There's more barriers to
Because you need to
back
get into
in.
med school. Right? Is that
Yeah.
what we're talking about? Like scoring high enough on
Yeah.
those exams, getting into a good.
Yeah, so you want to get into an American medical school. I went to a DO school, which is not like there's allopathic and osteopathic, MD and DO. I went the DO route, which for me, I was like, my grades were okay. They weren't like, I didn't have a 4.0, but I had decent grades. And so that was, and I got into Michigan State, which was my undergrad. So I went that route. But yeah, I mean, it's fairly competitive to get into medical school.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if
Interesting.
I think I saw a study recently where I think they had the highest enrollment rate ever for medical students. So I think a lot of people are still pursuing that
it.
path.
Yeah. And of course, I'm sure you don't know the exact data point, but even anecdotally, so your experience was you kind of self-opted out once you realized the pressure, the demands, the like vision of what you were sold is not what you're actually seeing it play out to be. Did you see a decent amount of people like exiting the process? Or is it like, because to your point, which you've alluded to, is a lot of people commit, like they've committed and now they're scared and now they're stuck in this thing. And do they just say like, well, the opportunity cost is so high, I better just do it?
Yeah, I think it's more so the latter. I think I was kind of an outlier in my situation. It's kind of something that's swept under the rug, mostly for doctors. To drop out of residency is kind of a very taboo thing because for some people it's like, oh, well, did they do something wrong? Did they fuck up? Did they kill a patient? Did something happen? There's always that thought in the back of someone's mind. And that does happen for some residents, like something happened, or maybe, they weren't doing well or something like that. And that person gets let go and whatever reason. And that's actually a really difficult thing for a lot of students. I do feel for them because residency is really hard. It's like you're working 100 hours a week and it's very stressful. And so we actually at MatchDay, we work with a lot of residents that drop out or for whatever reason get let go, and we help them get it back on their feet and carve out another path. During my time, that didn't exist. For me, it was just, COVID, burnout, my heart not being in it at the time. and really realizing I'm kind of running into a dead end. It was really existential for me at the time because I just, it was like my soul was getting ripped apart. It's just so soul sucking. And so for me, I just knew like if I don't do this, if I don't take a chance, if I don't bet on myself, um, I'm not going to be happy. I'm not going to be fulfilled. I really reached a breaking point. I was just like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And that was it for me, for my transition journey. But for a lot of other doctors, it can be a very scary, lonely, taboo time for them. And there's so much sunk cost and loans and family and all these other things. So particularly for doctors, it's a difficult journey.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know not too many people in my inner circle or that I'm close to are doctors or pursuing that. But my fiance's best friend, who's also her business partner that we spend a lot of time with, her brother was a medical doctor. I don't know what particular path in Florida, and we just always hear how burnt out and stressed out he is. And it was this like ongoing thing of like he wants to leave, but that's exactly what you're describing. And he pulled the plug on himself and was like, you know what, I'm quitting this job. He moved home, like this dude's in his mid-30s, moves home to his parents' house, and she was there, and like it had been like 2 months, and she's like, so what do you want to do? And he was still so physiologically fried that he still was like not ready to even like try to get back on his feet. It was like a crazy, interesting thing to see for someone who's like well put together, well educated, and just how like mentally damaging that environment seems to be for people. And it seems like it's very common to not be able to have that life balance, to not, not to be able to have a healthy home life. I'm sure it's very taxing, even if you have a wife or a partner.
Yeah.
That's got to be so demanding to find quality time and to let alone have hobbies or like mental health.
Yeah, it's particularly for physicians, I think. I mean, there's some people that really love it, that go into it and enjoy it and do well financially. They clock in, clock out. Maybe they work a lot of hours. There are some physicians that work into like their 90s.
That's crazy.
Like there's some surgeons that I've heard of like old and frail and like still, maybe they're not fully operating, but maybe they're doing clinic days.
Yeah.
So some physicians, they love it and they'll do it their whole life. For others, and I'd say probably for the majority now, that's not the case. They're burned out. They don't feel like they have autonomy. There's a lot of stress in the job, whether it's insurance or things that they don't have control over. There's just a burnout from dealing with so many patients and the volume you have to deal with in the insurance system. And even though they're making great money, like, a lot of them are making well over 300,000. If you're a surgeon, probably over $500,000. But even for some, they'll take a cut in half paycheck for a better lifestyle, for a better job.
Yeah. So interesting. And this is probably an insanely deep rabbit hole, so we don't need to go crazy deep into it, but I am curious, what is it about the way the medical system structured that it requires it to be so hardcore for doctors? Is it, you alluded to it being the insurance system, so just like the way the financials laid out, you have to just see an insane amount of patients for a hospital to stay profitable?
Yeah, it's a number of things. If you get down to the root of it, it's probably the incentive structure in healthcare today. In healthcare, you get paid to do things, and insurance pays for that, and they kind of hold I don't know what the right word is, but they kind of control everything. And so I think physicians kind of feel controlled in a way where their income relies on someone else making a decision. The care of the patient relies on insurance companies approving or not approving something. And if they don't agree, they have to go and spend time and resources to fight it. And so they don't feel like they have control over their patients, over their work, over their income. And so you have to basically do volume, and you have to just have a high volume practice, see lots of patients to get paid what you feel like you deserve to get paid. There are a lot of other systemic issues, but I think just insurance, incentive structure, the lack of autonomy, for most physicians, that's the case. And then there's maybe the private sector physicians, private practice, those ones probably don't have that as much. I think they're a lot happier. But that takes learning how to run a business, how to acquire patients, how to do all these other
Yeah.
things that most physicians don't know how to do or don't care to
Right.
want to learn how to do.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you go through residency and it was pretty sure you said partway through residency, that was when you realized, oh, I actually think I'm more interested in the business side of things.
I think I just always I always was interested in business. Even as a first year medical student, I built a newsletter at the time when there wasn't newsletters. I started a podcast in 2017 before really there were any podcasts.
Nice. About medicine?
It was called Beyond Medicine at the
Okay,
time.
cool.
Yeah. So it's funny because that theme's now for me over 10 years old.
Yeah.
Or no, not over, but about almost 10 years old.
Yeah.
So I was, I had a t-shirt business that I was running through that podcast. So I was always interested in business. I always wanted to learn. I enjoyed finding ways to make money and do something cool and build a brand. I think I really liked building a brand. So it was always kind of, it was always something I was thinking about.
Very cool. So was there a defining specific moment where you're like, I know I actually have to jump? Because you're obviously feeling that tension for a long time. I'm curious what that inflection point was for you.
Yeah, I think for a while it was kind of, I was in denial, I think. Probably even through my first 2 years of residency, I was just trying to tell myself to suck it up. And I think it just reached a point where I realized I just had no more energy. I had no more fight in me left to resist the direction I was being pulled. And, you can only swim against the tide for so long, right? You can only swim upstream for so long. And eventually I just reached a point where I was like, I have to let go. Like, I have to let go of all this resistance that I'm resisting and just go with the flow. And when I did finally let go, everything just started to fall into place very quickly. And that like, I felt free. I felt like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. So yeah, it was just, I just reached that point where I let go and I just kind of let things take me where it was going to take me.
That's exciting. I'm excited to jump into that part. My last question, closing out that decision, is what was the hardest part about executing that? So you knew you needed to do it. Was it like talking to your parents about it? Like community shame? Like, or was it just an internal battle and it was actually pretty chill on the outside once you did it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there was just a lot of fear and unknown. And, I had almost $500,000 in student loan debt. I was almost done with residency. I was 30 at the time, I think around 30. And there were just a lot of question marks. It was just completely crazy and unheard of. And I didn't have really a solid plan. I just had a vague direction that I was going to figure it out. And so I remember I did one thing that helped me with that. And it was, at the time, a bunch of my friends were going into fellowship. It was their last year, whether they were doing internal medicine or whatever, and they were doing cardiology fellowships, GI fellowships, whatever it is. And they were going to spend the next 3 years doing that. They'd take a pay cut to do that. They pretty much earn a resident salary. And I said, why can't I do that for myself? Why can't I look at the next 3 years as a fellowship, as a journey to learn how to, learn the insides of a business, how to run a business and start my own company eventually. And so I just time boxed 3 years. So I remember this specifically. My last day of residency was January 21st. Yeah, January 22nd, 2021. January 22nd, 2021. I said by January 22nd, 2024, I'm going to have this figured out. I'm going to be running my own business. I'm going to have the income that I want to make, and I'm going to be on my feet. And if I'm not there in 3 years, I will come back and start over or do this. Yeah. So I just gave myself 3 years, and that kind of put me in the right mindset to not focus on all the other crap that I had, the loans, the fear. I didn't tell my parents for 6 months, so I didn't tell anybody really. I called my mom 6 months later, one day after I started to figure things out, because I didn't want to stress them out. And I was like, "Hey, Mom, I gotta talk to you, this and that." And I dropped out of residency this long ago. She goes, do you really think I didn't know all this time?
No way.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, I'd call you in the middle of the day and you'd say you're doing something and you'd be vague about it.
Funny.
So like somehow she knew the whole time.
Yeah. And she's like, you just don't sound as depressed as you sounded.
Yeah.
That's really funny. Okay, cool. So how long was it until you formalized, or it became clear that MatchDay was going to be the thing for you?
It wasn't until probably it was in the back of my mind for a while, but there's a whole kind of story that I went through. I mean, my first thing right out of residency, I was like, I'm going to go and start a business right away. And so I had this idea for a startup. It was called, it was like shared co-working space for doctors and clinicians. And so I was trying to build that model, like a WeWork for clinicians, and went and tried raising some money and put together all this material. And I, did that for 6 months and just completely failed at that. And so immediately I was like, well, I'm not as great of an entrepreneur as I thought I was. I wasn't able to raise the money. I wasn't able to get it off the ground. And so totally failed. And so after that, I had to go back and work clinically. So I had, if you do 2 years of residency, in most states, you can still get an unrestricted license, but you're not board certified. So you can work in an urgent care it's like a GP, so a general practitioner. So I found a job at an urgent care, and I was able to work there 6 months later and just kind of like work part-time. But I knew I didn't. And when I started doing that, I realized, thank God I left, because I know I don't want to do this for sure now.
Reaffirmed.
Yeah, reaffirmed.
You've got
right
a taste of like the dopamine of building your own thing and being excited about a project. And
yeah. So, spent another 6 months job searching, networking, talking to people, and eventually I got an opportunity that brought me to Austin, Texas. So that was my first role. And then my second role was at another startup doing that. So it was about 2 years before I, went and actually started MatchDay.
Got it. Okay. So for these startups, what kind of work were you doing? I imagine that helped lay the foundation for.
Yeah. So the first role I got was kind of an oddball role, because they recruited me to kind of be the face of the clinician community, to do recruitment, to put myself out there, market the company. So it was kind of like a hybrid between business development and marketing. And so I was really just doing a lot of outreach with physicians, talking to physicians daily, bringing them into the community, having them work with the company and helping them basically do consulting and advising work with pharma companies. So that was my first job. I liked it, but I realized right away, I was like, I didn't quit medicine to just go and be a marketer for someone else's company. And I was like, I'm not really learning the skills that I want to learn as an operator. And so I jumped from that company to work in clinical operations. So I met someone in Austin here. We got connected. We started talking about the business, and there was just some synergy between me and the founder. And so that led me to be VP of clinical operations for this AI startup. And so I did that for about 7 or 8 months. And while I was doing that, I was building my community on the side. And so probably about 3 or 4 months in, my community started growing, and I started making some money from it. And eventually I was like, oh, wow, I can pay my rent. I can buy food for the month just by doing this side gig. I think I'm ready to go all in on this. And so by that point, I just went all in, and I just waited till I could pay my rent and buy groceries, which was like $3,000 or $4,000 a month. And once I reached that point, I was like, all right, I'm all in.
That's so cool.
And that's what turned into MatchDay.
Yeah, so cool. So with this community, what did it look like in the earliest days, and how were you doing it? Was this like through social media? Well, take us back to the very beginning.
It was literally a Squarespace website, and it was a Slack community.
Okay.
And I charged $99 a month, or no, not even. I charged $99 a year to join the community and then get access to like our job board, to the networking, to the resources that I built. And it was basically for clinicians to kind of learn the ropes. And then along that way, I realized this is kind of just surface level. I think there's a bigger opportunity to build something bigger here that is not just a community, but it like helps solve all the problems that this community faces,
Yeah.
which is what turned into MatchDay.
That's so cool. And before I forget, I just want to go back, and it's just hilarious to me how you define your first failure. I think it's so cool to have the confidence to have no experience and try to go raise a bunch of capital, not just for an online business that has zero cost if you don't want it to have cost. Like, no, we're going to like have infrastructure, we're going to have buildings, it's going to be a whole thing. Like, that is a huge swing. And I hope you give yourself credit for that, because it's cool.
Thank you. I haven't, honestly, even like thinking about it, I'm like, what was I thinking back then?
Yeah.
But yeah, I literally put together a pitch deck through Canva, and like I pitched probably 100 investors even at that point.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, and for MatchDay, did you guys go the capital route, or was it all fully bootstrapped?
We did. We raised from angel investors. Yeah.
Cool.
So
Awesome.
it helped us.
So clearly the skill set was helpful.
It did.
Go
Definitely.
back through that
I learned
process.
so much. And when it was time to raise for MatchDay, I was in way better of a position.
Yeah, that's cool. And probably a pretty unique differentiator for you in the quality of service you offer, because being in the online services space, it's very rare to come across a company that has actually secured funding.
Yeah.
Almost every company in the space is just bootstrapped, and it's like, you know, a really lean team.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's cool.
We built MatchDay the opposite of how most companies build it. So we built the program first. And so we invested in the team, in the tech, in the platform, and the just kind of the actual transition program. And we didn't know how to market it. So we did it backwards, and then we had to figure out how to market it later and start like actually making money. So we did it kind of backwards.
It's awesome. Hey, clearly it worked out. You know,
Yeah.
we're here now. That's cool. So how do people typically find you guys?
So mainly, I mean, in the beginning stages, it was through my organic, through my LinkedIn. So that's where I post the most, through our Instagram as well. And then through organic search as well. But the main driver for our growth has probably been just paid ads, Meta, Google.
Nice.
You know, that's top of funnel, and awareness gets, because we're kind of like the first company to really do this at scale, career transitions for healthcare professionals. There are a few like independent career coaches or people that started talking about this that I just started seeing probably in the last year for healthcare. But, you know, us starting this 2 years ago, this is the first time anybody's ever heard of a career transition for healthcare professionals. The first time they're even thinking it's possible. They don't even know what non-clinical jobs are or what's available to them. So we had to do a lot of educating. And it's also the first time they're hearing of like a fellowship. What is a fellowship? And so breaking that down for people and helping them understand what it is we do and how we do it and how we achieve our results.
That's interesting. For this person, because that is interesting, and that's a lot of new information to digest and feel confident to move forward with something like what you guys provide. What would you say, especially for the clients who end up on the other side of what you offer and they're happy in a new job, what was the biggest mental shift they had to face and overcome to be willing? Because even to like talk to a stranger, hear that there's this thing they can do and they have to pay for it, et cetera,
Yeah.
just the newness and the fear and the limiting beliefs, I imagine, holds a lot of people back.
Yeah. I would say it kind of goes into two categories. I would say the first category is there are a number of clinicians that have already been thinking about this. They've been trying for a while, applying on LinkedIn, trying to rebrand themselves, and they're just getting hit with rejections, no interviews. They don't know what's going right or wrong in the job search process. They're just frustrated. And so I would say that is the main group, is people that have been at it for a while and they're not succeeding.
Yeah, they have enough pain because they've like
Yeah.
decided they're trying this. Those people believe it's possible.
Yeah,
They see the goal, they're committed to the goal, and they have a lot of pain. So
Yes,
that totally makes
exactly.
sense.
And typically the pain's very high because, you know, it's just a lot harder for someone who's, you know, in healthcare, never really had to, like, recruiters are just begging you to come take a job really in healthcare. And it's completely opposite in the non-clinical job market. And so they have a big learning curve and they have a hard time with rejection, and there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of gaps to fill for them. And so there's a lot of value they gain from the fellowship. The other group is they're just starting to think about it. They're just maybe it's the first time they knew this was possible or that they could go non-clinical. Maybe it's the first time they're thinking about starting to apply. They have a different challenge. They don't necessarily understand the pain yet because they haven't gone through it and tried it on their own yet and realize how difficult it's probably going to be to do it on their own. And so for them, there's a different level of education that we have to walk them through to show them, hey, you could do it on your own. Here's everything you'd need, but here's what you're going to face. These are the things that are going to hold you back, and things to be aware of. And so we try to show them that, but also show them here's a structured path. Here's the smart way to do it. We try to break down the ROI of, what's your time worth, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to do this on your own, it could take 18 months. That's what we see when people are doing this on your own. You're going to need 6 months to just learn all the different challenges and gaps that you have. But, we can help speed that up for you and save you a lot of time and frustration.
Totally. Yeah, I think about this stuff all day because we run in parallel universes and we're having these conversations. And the stat that is so interesting is that just for the average person who has the perfect experience is taking 5.5 months right now to get a job. Yeah. And our program, we guarantee placement, but we would absolutely not work with someone who doesn't have at least 2 years of experience. So it's so cool that you guys exist and can help people with that because that is really tough.
Yeah.
Like to face that alone. Like I am not surprised. I don't know. I wouldn't have known what the stat is, but 18 months sounds about right.
Yeah.
Of having to go from I have no experience on paper to someone wants to hire me against 500 other people applying to this job.
Totally. And clinicians do have a real edge if they learn how to package themselves and speak about their experience because it's not like they've never worked a job. There is a lot of transferable skills. We just have to teach them how to package it, how to communicate it, how to network effectively, how to interview appropriately. Once they figure that out, that timeline condenses significantly. But if you don't figure that out, you could be spinning your wheels for 2 years and getting nowhere.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
And just with how fast the job market's changing. And I always think about the opportunity, not even just the opportunity cost, but like in the worst case scenario, you get laid off and don't have income. That's like potentially $10K a month. You're like lighting on fire.
Exactly.
And to be able to be building that boat in conjunction or the life raft in conjunction with steady income, kind of to your point of always having that steady income, not burning the boats, I think that's the way I've always done things too. I've never been I just have no income. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. And the cool thing is most clinicians that work with us still are working a full-time job.
Yeah, that's
good.
And
so they're able to keep that up.
That's cool. So I'm really fascinated by this. So when someone comes in and you're taking them from clinical to traditional remote workforce, how do you determine what type of jobs they should go after?
So I wouldn't say we would determine it for them. It's more of a collaborative kind of process where we walk them through and help them understand what is it that I care about? What is it that I'm good at? What is it that I'm passionate about? Couple that with what is it that I want my life to look like? Do I want to work from home? What's the lifestyle that I want? And then what's the salary range that I'm looking for? I think that's a very big piece too, because do that same process with a physician, they're looking for $250,000 or more. So it's unlikely that they can make that switch because like you have to be a director or a VP to get in that. And you can't go from no experience to VP, right? It's not realistic.
Yeah.
But for nurses, for physical therapists, for allied health professionals, PAs and NPs, they're generally earning between $80,000 and $150,000. And you can make a horizontal move into non-clinical health tech or life science in that range. Maybe it's a small pay cut, maybe it's a pay bump. A lot of get a pay bump. But assuming all of those things, you've painted that picture, salary range, lifestyle, and then your experience and skills that are transferable. When you look at all those things holistically, you can carve out 2 to 3 target roles. And that's what we help them do in that process. Pick those target roles, get clear on that direction, and then once you've got that, full steam ahead in execution.
Yeah, nice. I love that. Yeah, so many parallels to how I like to think about this too. The first thing we make our clients go through is career vision, which is exactly at that. Like, what's the high level vision for your life? Like, forget about work for a minute. Where do you want to be living? How much free time do you want to have? What makes you happy? Who are you surrounded by?
Yeah.
Now, how does career fit into that? And then all the nitty gritty stuff. So I love that. So given that, that's awesome. And yeah, and the way I worded that, like obviously the person should make that decision,
Yeah.
but I was curious to know like how you guys obviously provide your expertise and support to help them get to that conclusion.
Yeah.
Interestingly though, because they're coming with non-direct experience breaking into a new field, and I'm sure you have people saying, hey, my number one choice is a bunch of different fields across the board. Have you seen trends of certain fields being easier or faster to break into versus others? And if so, what are those trends?
Yeah, for sure. I think it depends. I think I would almost break it down into like introvert, extrovert, because a lot of clinicians, some of them like patient facing, they like talking to people. They are sales oriented and can carry a conversation. They can do discovery because as a clinician, you learn a lot of that discovery process. So customer success is a really big one I see for clinicians. And you can get into a customer success manager job earning, 100 to 140K entry level, going straight in from health tech. And the other thing is a lot of health tech companies really like that. They like having clinicians in those positions because they can learn the job pretty easily. And they just have so much domain expertise and knowledge that makes them such a good fit for those jobs. So CSM is probably number one. I see clinicians going into. The number two, I'd probably say is project management. So that's a little bit more introverted, I would say. Someone wants to, doesn't necessarily want to be in front of people every day talking, but they're organized, they're type A, they like managing things, maybe managing people. That's another very relevant opportunity for a lot of clinicians. So I'd say those are probably the biggest two that I'm seeing. And then I'd say put number three as like implementation and quality. Those are, I think, a big direction a lot of clinicians going.
Interesting. That checks out, at least in terms of how I map the job market as well. Because while it's definitely not as drastic as what you're doing in our process, we're doing the same thing, talking to someone like, okay, based on your background, do we feel like you're a fit for what we do? If yes, great. If no, let me share some job titles that I think could work for you and why.
Yeah.
And CSM is my go-to for like, there's no hard skills required. It's like, can you talk to people? And if you can talk to people, you can do it. So like, what's interesting, I'm assuming you see this here, maybe you do, but like human resources is like seemingly like a totally dying field. Like the amount of roles that used to be out there, the amount of people that come to us, they have HR, can't get a job. I'm like, let's go see, if you're open to CSM, we can definitely help you out. Cause it's like a similar concept where, and I would have guessed that to be your answer, or at least the common theme of what I'm hearing in those two roles in particular that they'll share in common is there's not necessarily domain expertise required, that they're like, hey, can you code this certain type of program?
Right.
Do you know SQL? All these things, or even sales. Like, do you really have a deep understanding of how to go through a sales process, which can take a couple of years to refine? Definitely. There are certainly these other things that if you just have transferable skills, like I can get things done, I can execute tasks and manage projects, I can talk to people. That's all they really need to know if you can tell the compelling story and build 100%. Trust. Yeah, that's really interesting. Very cool. Well, we talked a little bit before doing this episode, and I asked for a few different beliefs or hot takes that you have, and I want to ask you about a couple of these. So tell us about what you think is required to get a role. You mentioned you believe that experience far outweighs credentials in the current job market. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I have a hot take on this because when I was making this transition, I contemplated getting an MBA. Not contemplated. I was just like, some people recommended that. And I was like, why would I go and, like, I'm already $500,000 in debt. Why would I go spend another 2 years and $100,000 to get a degree and to maybe get a job from that? It just seemed absurd to me. And I feel like that's the thing you do when you can't face uncertainty, when you can't sit with uncertainty. And so like, it's a safe thing to do. It's like, oh, I'll just go do that because that'll guarantee me a job. But if you really think of it from a grounded, realistic perspective, that's the dumbest thing you could do, because that's your time. One, you could be earning throughout that 2-year period, making money. You could be building experience that will be something you can use on your resume, something you can talk about. You'll learn so much more than what you'd learn in school or getting a degree or whatever. And so I thought about it so critically, and I was like, no, I'd rather just go and do this fellowship that I'm creating for myself and get my foot in the door, break in, just learn as much as I can, make money while I'm doing it, and not go into more debt than I have to. And so it's just like the no-brainer thing, but I just think that there's so much propaganda around this, especially for people going into second careers, where it's like they always think that's the way to do it. Go from start here and then go get an MBA. And I just think it's a terrible use of time. And maybe it's a different story if you're going into an Ivy League and if your parents are paying for your education and you have no student loan debt. Great. That wasn't the case for me. I had to pay it all myself. And it's so for some people, it's a good, like if you've got the easy life like that, go for that. I would do it all day if my parents were paying. But and if I was going to an Ivy League because of the network and things like that.
Yeah.
But other than that, outside of that, I don't think it's a smart decision. So I think just higher education in general, graduate education beyond, like a bachelor is just not very, I would even challenge bachelor degrees now. Like they're not that valuable. It's smarter to probably just start off as an intern and get experience. I don't think I've ever looked or asked about anybody's education or where they went to school, or nor do I care about it really. I just want to know if like, hey, do you have a good attitude? Have you worked with people? Do you have the right experience? Can you take us from point A to point B? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. I love that. I, again, have basically the exact same take on that. And my personal anecdote, so how I got into this whole career services space, I was working as a product manager for a big healthcare company. And for a while, I was just like, they did not reward innovative thinking at all. So I tried really hard for a while, and then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to check the boxes and like do side hustles. I did that for a while, burnt out on that stuff too. And I was like, you know what? I bet I could get, and I was earning $80K. This was like my out of college salary. And out of college, $80K was awesome at the time. But then like 3 or 4 years had passed. I was like, I'm still earning freaking $80K. Like I could do much better. And I did the market research and I was like, a senior product manager can easily be earning 160. So that was the goal I set for myself. Yeah. And with changing nothing about my background, just changing my storytelling, I got a $160K job. And then I got a $150K job not too much longer after that. I got the offer. So my clear N of one experience was like, I didn't need to go get an MBA. I didn't need anything to change. It's just like, on paper, can I do the job? Yeah. And then if on paper I can do the job and they interview me, can I communicate in an interview that I can do the job? Yeah. So any person I've coached, and we've talked about this, is like, no one cares. Like take all that stuff off your resume. Like on your resume, 2 lines. Yeah. Just like you graduated college. That's all. Take all your, like if you have PhD stuff on there and it's not super relevant, like take it off. I want more space for like your experience. Yeah. Yeah. Cause I think that's so true. And I feel like, especially with all the ATS systems, like auto reject stuff, unfortunately, a lot of companies are still requiring that undergrad. Yeah. I do think it provides zero value and no one actually cares. Yeah. And is coming more and more so. And I will be thrilled for the day that it like truly doesn't matter anymore. Because eventually when I have kids.
Probably for small companies, like we don't care. Like, but like, probably. I
definitely don't.
Corporate's probably maybe they still do. They'll have those screeners.
But. And there's this big, I mean, obviously all the cool software companies historically don't care. And I would love to see more and more of that. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's just communicating you can do the thing. Yeah. Which leads into a great question. So for especially people who have zero direct experience, how do you think about cultivating that experience? And we can even talk specifically about these people you're supporting. Yeah. Like what can that person do to go from never done this before to of 500 candidates, I want to hire you?
I mean, the first piece is just having that career vision, but also having a grounded confidence in yourself and in your abilities. And I think imposter syndrome is something that's very, very big for healthcare professionals because they think that their only value is what they bring on the clinical side because their license is what allows them to do the work. And so there's a little bit of a brainwashing because of the way you move up in healthcare. To do anything, you need to have a license. To do anything, you have to have a certification, has to be renewed. And so there's this imprinting that if you don't have those things, you cannot do that job, which when you have people's lives in your hand is a good thing. Like it should be gate kept that way. But when you go non-clinical, you don't have necessarily people's hands directly in your life or people's lives directly in your hands. But it's that thinking and that imposter syndrome transfers in that direction, where it's like, well, I don't have any direct experience. I don't have a degree in communications or operations or sales. And I've never done this before. So there's a lot of imposter syndrome going into that. And so before you can jump in, it's like you have to internally do the work to think of yourself as someone who's capable of that, and not just capable, worthy of holding that role and worthy to grow and elevate and bring value in that role. And to do that, you have to like do the work. That's why we say like just hiring a resume writer is not going to solve your problem. You have to work through it with them. You have to go line by line, understand your metrics, understand how to speak about this, understand how to tell your story. You have to build your LinkedIn in parallel with that, so they speak the same, right? And you have to then build your narrative arc and feel grounded and confident in all of those things working together. And that's how you build groundedness and confidence, so that when you're going after a job, it's not just like praying someone's going to open the door for you. No, it's like, hey, I bring a lot of value here. I'm a great person. I'm a great fit for this job. Here's how I can help you with this, this, and that. And if you come in like not as a beggar, but as, you know, as someone who brings value, that's a different energy. And some people are, I think people that struggle, they continue with that beggar energy. And I hate to use that word, but it's kind of the best fitting word.
Way to call it out, yeah.
But it's desperate and people don't like it. But when you are confident in yourself and in the value you bring, and you carry that energy forward, people feel it. It comes off in every subtle way, in the way you frame your outreach, in the way you present your LinkedIn message. It comes off very subtly. But people read it and they feel it, and they know when someone is going to help them.
I love that. Yeah, that actually triggered a light bulb moment for me back to when I was going through that same experience I mentioned earlier, trying to go from 80K to 160K, where initially I felt that fear and imposter syndrome, like no way I could go from like barely in like a entry level product manager to a senior product manager on paper. Yeah. And I always use this terminology with my clients as well, which is like the fake it till you make it energy, not necessarily like, you know, lying about what you're capable of, but even though I had never been a senior product manager before, when I learned what's required for that job and how to write a resume that reflects that, and then what are the interview questions I'm going to get asked, and then drilling those until my responses were amazing, I had just like downloaded in my brain how to be an amazing senior product manager. Yeah. So it's almost like you can reverse osmosis, get the credentials by committing to the process.
100%.
And like you just mentioned, like leaning in, committing to it, and just covering all corners of the map of like, what is an amazing project manager doing?
Yep.
And drilling that until you brainwash yourself into knowing you can do it.
And at the end of the day, it's all just words, you know, like I think that's the thing that holds a lot of us back, is we create labels for something that becomes something that's outside of our skill set or outside of our domain. So, you know, I think that when you internally understand your value and you just come from that energy space, it doesn't matter what title they put there, right? It's what's the job? If the job entails this and that, I can do it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Super cool. And we talked about it earlier, but just to clarify it for anyone listening who's intrigued by this conversation, who's the ideal type of person that would get support from MatchDay?
So the ideal, like I mentioned, there's two kind of broad people, I'd say, people that we work with. So the ideal is someone who, one, is coachable. Like you have to be coachable. If you're not coachable, if you're not open to feedback, if you're not open to support, you're just not going to do well with us. So we want people who are coachable, have a good attitude, that want to show up and do the work, because there's no handouts. Like we're not promising anything like this takes work. There's rejection. There's all these things. So it's the person that, one, has a healthcare background, the clinician. We've worked with lab supervisors. We've worked with respiratory therapists. We've worked with medical assistants. So across the spectrum, even doctors, lots of doctors. With doctors, you got to be realistic.
For sure.
But I'd say that's the first core group, good attitude, and have been already at this for a while. Like you're applying, You're doing the same thing over again. You're not hearing back. You're getting rejected. Maybe you're getting an interview and you're making it a couple rounds and it's just, flopping. Think about, like, that's the first group. Like, we can help you. We'll help you fill in those gaps. We'll help you get the offer. Then the first group is the one that's clinician, just exploring, just starting to figure it out, starting to think about it, but serious about making the commitment, right? Like, if you're just here to learn more info, there's lots of free stuff online on our website, all that. But if you're like, I don't want to have to learn this all on my own, go through the pain of having to figure it out on my own. Like, I call these the smart people, honestly, because they're just like willing to fast track their process. They know the best way to do that is to just work with someone who's done it, who knows what they're doing. That's the approach I took with MatchDay. I actually co-founded the business with my business partner, Yanni. He had already built a massive company before. I'm like, I don't want to go and have to figure this out on my own. This guy knows what he's doing. I like him. He's a good friend, and I trust him, and he knows how to build a business. So I'm going to partner with someone that does. And that's the reason MatchDay is what it is now. So same mentality is like, instead of trying to figure it out yourself, work with an expert and fast track your whole situation.
That makes sense. So obviously there's, like you mentioned, variation in how good of results someone's going to get if they actually commit, do the work, et cetera. What does an average timeline look like when you bring someone in? Like, you mentioned the stages they go through of clarity, resume, LinkedIn, getting out there, networking, et cetera. How fast do people typically reach the point that they're interviewing, and then how quick does an offer typically come for people?
I'd say it varies. So we did our most recent placement report. We had some good stats from that. So our average days to offer is 88 days, which is incredible for having to go through a career transition. So average days to offer is 88 days. I think about 85% of our fellows land jobs within 6 months. In terms of timelines of like going through the fellowship's 90 days. It used to be 6 months, but over the last 2 years, we've been able to like condense a lot of the parts that took longer and just make it faster and, help people get everything they need in that 3-month period. And a lot of the times they're taking that and using it beyond 3 months to get a job. But it's a 90-day fellowship. The first part of it is that clarity piece. So getting to clarity, understanding where your skills are at, what's transferable, and then building a clear direction. The second part of that is where you start to build your confidence and your assets. So that resume, LinkedIn, narrative arc all gets condensed into that time period. And then there's, you're set up with your job search tools, your accountability tracker, all those different things. And then the third phase is interview preparation, mock calls, interview feedback sessions. And then the fourth piece is, getting the offer and negotiating it the right way so that you are, getting the best offer, the best benefits, everything. So we do that all in 90 days.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I feel like that's a easily overlooked part of the value prop of getting support is how easy it is to get an extra $5K added on top of your annual salary, which like can often pay for the whole thing itself, even just that little thing.
I think like 98% of our fellows have negotiated their salaries.
Yeah, which is you're getting the floor almost every time, right?
Yeah,
just knowing how to do it without like messing the whole thing up.
Yeah,
some nuance to it. Very cool. I love that. So I want to understand a bit about your take on the future of the job market, where things are heading. What's your hot take on how AI is going to transform the job market?
So our tagline at MatchDay is "The future is human," and I believe that AI is going to take over everything technical, from coding to documentation to potentially even surgeries at some point, down the line. Technical skills are going to become a commodity. And so the future is going to become more human. And so what that means is anything that's relationship based, where you're having a conversation with another human, anything that requires coordination with other people, I think that's the way the future is going. So I think jobs are going to become more human like that. You're not going to necessarily have to do all the technical elements, but you might have to work with other team members on a function that supports scaling something technical. Or you're directing agents, and we're already seeing this, on what to do and what to build and what to execute on. You're collaborating with your team more on strategy. So I think the future is moving in that direction. I also think big companies are going to get smaller. So there's going to be, instead of big, huge companies, they're going to learn how to automate a lot of things with AI and have much smaller teams. But those people that leave those companies are going to start companies, and they're going to have, another team of 20 people or 10 people. And so we're just going to have a lot more small companies that are doing a lot of different things.
Yeah. That is, at least the second half, that is my exact optimistic take. So I think the best way I see this whole thing unfolding is exactly that. Big teams compress, way less people. What used to take 10 people takes one. But it's so easy to start a company now that there's just...
And I think there's going to be a lot more entrepreneurs.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more with that. I'm curious, when it comes to, and maybe this is, I'm be curious your take on this for people who are in medical, and then, actually, there's one other thing I want to share on that. So, to your initial point of those things, like the jobs compressing, there's just this huge analysis done by some big banking firm or consulting firm or something, where they analyze it like 1 billion different job postings, and they of course put some like terminology. There's these two camps, but it essentially was all the low level entry work is totally going to get automated away, but the people who remain are those people at the higher level tier that is then managing all the execution. So the coder is gone, but the engineer is still there. The engineer has to design the system.
Yeah.
It's like the more high level experience. And
the architects.
That seems to be playing out right now, and I'm sure will only get proliferated where kind of across everything. And I think you used this terminology before we shot, was like the consolidation or the compression of the job market.
Yeah.
So whether you're talking to, and maybe I'd be curious your take, speaking to the doctor of how to think about these things, but also the previous, clinical setting professional who's now in traditional corporate, how would you encourage people to think about this landscape and how to position themselves going forward?
I think just keeping a pulse on everything. Like we're already seeing new jobs being created in real time. Like now they have this new popular tech job, like forward deployed engineer, which, God knows what that even means. But it's like every AI company now is hiring forward deployed engineers. And so it's just a fancy way of describing someone who's using AI to build things.
Yeah.
Right. So I think customer success will continue to grow. Like it's a very relationship driven field. I think sales will be a very hot
1,000%.
Place to go, because sales is all human to human. Like it'd be hard for us to sell MatchDay without like having a great admissions team.
Yeah.
It'd be because people at the end of the day, they have a lot of fear. They have a lot of doubts. They have a lot of questions. They don't want to, no matter how good AI gets at having some AI, whatever, like avatar doing sales, I just don't ever think people will want that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's going to be a place where humans continue to dominate.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah. I feel the same about, at least over the next 5 years. I don't even want to make a prediction of what happens after 5 years. Who God knows. But I really do think customer success, like think about every small company or like startups, who do you hire first? You hire salespeople. When you have clients, you hire CSMs. I have a friend who used to be head of sales for Tony Robbins, and his take, which is a very unique take, is that there will be no sales because our AI just talks to their AI, and then like your AIs just do transactions on your behalf. I was like, okay, interesting hot take. I hope to God that's not what happens, but whatever. But there absolutely is so much fear, right? So that's absolutely a thing.
I mean, I don't know. I guess, think about it like 10 years down the road, things will change. I don't think it's anything to fear. I think a lot of people just get consumed by that, and they start to think like, oh, I have to secure my future right now. The roles are going to change, and there's going to be opportunities that are available that we can't even imagine right now.
Yeah.
Right. I just believe that to be true.
Yeah.
It's just a better way to.
I love that.
To think about the future.
Yeah, that's great. I think I need that reminder sometimes too, and I have no reason to be complaining. I guess it's part of my job and your job as well, to pay attention to the job market, so it's easy to see the headlines.
Yeah.
But what I remind myself whenever I'm like, oh God, I don't know if, like, who knows if my company will even be a viable business model? Who knows if people are even buying things online the way they are now, et cetera, et cetera. If you just become the person who's resilient and adaptable, into one of the earliest things you brought up about go get experience.
Yeah.
If you, whatever you're doing, if you prioritize an hour a day and you're just like learning skills, whether it's AI, marketing, sales, like business fundamentals, there will always be some kind of business people need, you know?
Exactly.
You might, I was doing it, not even on purpose, but my mind was wandering and I was like, what would be the most resilient, like in the doomsday scenario, is there a business I could run? I'm like, yeah. Like if we're just living in slums, I could get like a government contract to clean up the slums. Like there's always some way to make money if you have to, you know?
Exactly. As long as there's a problem to be solved, or a problem, like there's money that to solve it.
Yeah.
So, even your customers today, they might have a different problem in 5 years, but you can still solve it in whatever way that is.
Yeah. So unrelated, but even driving over here, the radio was on before I switched it to a podcast, and they, like, the thing they kept saying when they would do commercial break is like, no robots here, human only. Like the fact that that's your differentiator, like that's an unthinkable way to differentiate yourself 2 years ago. But to be like, no, this is done by humans.
Totally. Well, I don't know if you remember this, but when Amazon first came around, like retail was so scared about just everything getting replaced by Amazon, right? But the retail stores that did really well, just instead of just making it all about retail, they made it more about the experience of retail. So when you go in somewhere, it's like there's an experience there. I think that's why Toys R Us went out of business, is like they didn't figure out how to make Toys R Us an experience. So I'm like, I wish they would have figured that out.
Yeah, true. When you're a little kid, it felt like an experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, RIP. Cool. Well, as we wrap up here, one last question for you. So what is one question or thing you would encourage any person working in clinical ponder who might feel burnt out? Like basically speaking to that you who felt conflicted earlier, what's something that you wish you had been presented with, whether that's a thought experiment question to really think about, to get clear on what is that next path for me?
I think I would just tell people to get better at listening to themselves, because the answer for everyone isn't to just like jump ship and leave clinical. I think for a lot of people it's to stay, but just what is it that's really bothering you about it? Is it the environment you're in? Is it the actual job you have? You might just need to switch hospitals for a lot of clinicians. Like they don't all need to jump ship, and they shouldn't, because it would wreck our healthcare system. For most people, I'd say, maybe not most, but probably 50 to 60% of healthcare professionals are happy. 40% are not and definitely want to leave. So it just depends on the stage that you're in, the amount of risk you're willing to take, the amount that you're willing to bet on yourself, and then just getting to a place where you feel peace about it. Like if you want to stay in clinical and you're okay with some of the suffering, but not all, but you're also okay with the trade-offs of not having to go and figure it out. And, like there's trade-offs. Like everybody, it's not a one size fits all. Some clinicians want to go and start a business and want to take on that risk and go through it. It's just, if you just get better at listening to yourself and being like brutally honest with yourself, then I think you're in a good place, because then you can figure out what's the next step. For some people, it's like they just don't want to. For some people, it's just really, honestly, I don't. It's not even about their job; it's about them, right? It's about their internal traumas and their internal struggles, the things they deal with that they don't know how to overcome. Honestly, it's most of the time an internal battle, and like it's getting masked with work. Because here's the thing: like an enlightened person's not going to work in a traumatizing hospital. Right? The two are just on different frequencies, right? So if you're in an environment that's full of trauma and horrific things happening and it's miserable, I'd hate to say this, but you are on that frequency level. So when you start leveling up and you're like no longer accepting that, this is going to disappear. You're going to get to something that's on your level. And so most of the time it's just an internal kind of spiritual thing where you got to overcome the things that keep you there. And most of the time that's just on a spiritual, energetic level.
Love that. Very
Yeah.
cool. I could talk about that kind of stuff forever. That's really cool. Sweet. So for anyone listening, where can people find you online?
Yeah. So our Instagram's matchday.health, our website's matchday.health. And then I'm on LinkedIn. Rami Webhi is my LinkedIn. That's my personal thoughts, and I share everything about whatever I'm, seeing in the market and things like that. And yeah, if you want to email me, we'll send over my email for
Cool.
you.
Awesome. Well, Rami, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you
and
so much.
cool to see everything you're doing for everyone in the clinical space.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Cool. Likewise.
Oh.